Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Non-Prophets, where we're so non-prophetic we never even know whether we're going to be doing a show or not. I'm your host, Jeff D. Got no co-host today, but my guests are Michele Gadush, co-chair of the Atheist Community of Austin.
Hi, Jeff.
And Don Baker.
Thank you.
These fine folks have been to some recent atheist conventions, and we're going to talk a lot about that today. Our producer is Russell Glasser.
Hello.
And today's opening music was I'll Always Love My God by Michael Newdow. Dr. Newdow, you may recall, is the lawyer who brought and won the case against the compulsory recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance on the grounds that the phrase under God renders such practice unconstitutional. You can buy Dr. Newdow's complete album entitled Liberty and Justice for All from evolvefish.com. We're live May 31, 2003. Okay, let's do the show. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hi, Jeff.
Welcome to our fine program. So, which conventions now? Where are you guys at?
Well, there are two different atheist conventions, one in Chicago and one in Florida, and two different groups with very different philosophies, and they had a tough time, I think, competing for all the good speakers.
And we got all the good ones.
Were they on the same weekend?
They were.
Okay.
They were.
Well, the story behind that is that American atheists used to always have their convention on Easter weekend, and then when Madeline disappeared, they stopped having a convention, so then Atheist Alliance took over that weekend. But then eventually American atheists started having conventions again, also on Easter weekend, and I know there's been some talk, at least from the Alliance side, to try to do a joint convention, but that's never been received very well. So.
Yeah. Can't we all just get along?
Can't we all just get along?
Yeah, there's very different philosophies between the two groups.
You went to the American Atheist Convention.
That's right.
That was in Chicago.
That's right. And American Atheists is the Madeline Murray O'Hare organization, and it started here in Austin, as a matter of fact, and she was kind of the czarina of the organization throughout her life, and was kind of ran the group as in a kind of a top-down fashion, not necessarily in a democratic fashion. And the group is very focused on activism. I would say it's a very big part of the group and their mindset.
Mm-hmm. I was in Washington D.C. Twice recently for American Atheist events. One was a press conference at the National Press Club responding to President Bush's faith-based initiative, and then there was the Atheist March on Washington, and those are both American Atheist events. Very well organized, very well attended. The march anyway. So yeah, you can't fault them for getting things done.
Yes.
But yeah, they've got a rep for being a little exclusive.
Right, and I think that's probably the Atheist Alliance was formed because of that. A lot of people were disillusioned with the way that American Atheist is not democratically run, and they chose to form an alliance of independent, democratically run atheist organizations. And I think there are about 47 member organizations from around the world. The latest one was from Nigeria. There's members. There's an Iceland group. There's Indian group.
Yeah, we don't believe in God.
Sweden.
I can't do a Norwegian accent. Come on.
You gotta talk like Bjork.
Oh, I can't. Yeah.
Sing like Bjork.
No, I can't do that.
Can't do that. Nobody can.
And wouldn't want to if I could.
Oh, come on. Oh, don't be dissing on Bjork.
Sorry.
Bjork is a hottie. Go ahead.
But anyway, so the Atheist Alliance Convention, which is held every year, is a combination, just a convention for member organizations to come and get to know each other, and also it's a business meeting. The leaders of each independent organization are entitled to a seat on the board of the Atheist Alliance, and we do business meetings at the convention too.
But we'll get to more details of the Atheist Alliance Convention in a bit. Let's talk first about the American Atheist one.
Okay.
Because we started with you first.
Sure.
Now, what did they have for? What was the attraction? I mean, they have big name guests. They have
that's definitely part of it.
Conference kind of things. What all was going on?
It was
Why did you choose to go?
Why did I choose to go?
Yeah.
It was kind of a coin toss because I'm really not too affiliated with either one, and was kind of scoping out both of these, which, and had to make a choice because it's on the same weekend. Couldn't go to both. And the sad fact is, I think I chose it because they were a little bit more organized on their website, and it was pretty clear that the conference was actually going to occur. And the other website was like a little.
It had some organizational problems.
Sure.
Yeah, it was a matter of question.
Well, they're democraly run, and you should expect that with democracy.
Right, a little less organized.
So what did they have going on there?
It was about a 2-day deal. The third day was kind of a social event. They did a cruise around the lake there in Chicago. And,
oh, really?
And I didn't attend that, but they had 2 days of speakers and the usual book selling and book signing and that sort of thing.
Sure.
They had quite a few good speakers. I'd say between the two conferences, it was really a sort of a who's who of anybody related to skepticism and atheism and all those causes. If you'd like, I can go through some of the highlights, if you will.
Sure, please.
For me, the highlight was hearing Kimberly Blaker, who wrote the book called Fundamentals of Extremism, and it's a relatively new book. She's actually the editor of it, but she wrote a few of the chapters, and it's a very good book as far as detailing the fundamentalist Christianity and the sort of negative effects it's had on not only the people who are fundamentalist Christians, but all of us. It goes into things like how this there's a lot of examples. One of them is a pretty classic example of how the lack of sex education and fighting against abortion and condom usage and such is effectively straddling a lot of women who aren't ready to raise children with children, and this is causing a sort of a poverty and ignorant cycle that is affecting everyone, because we're all having to pay taxes and deal with crime and that sort of thing. And so this is discussed. There's it's a kind of a catalog, a well-researched catalog of sort of what's wrong with fundamentalist Christianity, and she gave a pretty good talk about it. And
I was just going to say, also in that, one of the chapters in that book was written by the president of the Atheist Alliance, Bobby Kirkhart, and there's another chapter in there that was also written by Herb Silverman, who's with Atheists of the Low Country, or Humanists of the Low Country. Yeah. He's the atheist who got walked out on at the city council meeting in Charleston. So, he's a nice guy.
Okay. Go ahead.
Well, it's interesting that this collection of essays about that features to atheist representatives. It's not just. It sounds like it's not.
There's not a real.
I guess I'd be concerned if I was editing a book like that. I would be concerned that you wouldn't want. If you were going to write a book about, if you're trying to write a fair book about like what's wrong with Satanism, you wouldn't get Christian leaders to write essays about what's wrong with it. And it seems like there's a kind of these are the opposing voices here talking about it. I guess I'd have to read the book and see what their credentials were and where they're coming from.
Yeah, maybe we've made a little bit too big a deal about the division between these two groups.
By the way, we are live, or at least at the time we're live. It's May 31st.
We've been having a little trouble getting the show back up and on the air, going out on schedule.
Yeah. Nobody is in the chat room, but we do have 22 listeners right now, so come on over, guys.
That chat room, by the way, would be at www.atheistnetwork.com. You go to that website, click on the chat link, and if you're listening to us live, we're on Saturdays from 2 to 3:30 Central Time. Then you can jump in the chat room and chat with at least our producer, Russell Glasser, who's monitoring the chat room right now, or anybody else that happens to show up.
That's right.
And we watch the chat room, and if anybody says anything interesting, we read it here on the air. Okay, so they have the author of that book. That sounds cool. Who else do they have?
Another author I enjoyed hearing a talk from is Dr. Robert Pennock, who wrote Intelligent Design, Creation and Its Critics.
Oh, right.
which has been out a little bit longer. This Fundamentals of Extremism it's hot off the press.
Yeah, he has two really good books which I've read. The first one is called Tower of Babel, and they're both excellent reads because they focus in specifically on the newish intelligent design movement rather than getting focused on the young Earth creationists. And Tower of Babel is probably the one you would want to read first because the second one is sort of a companion book where they actually print a lot of the articles that the intelligent design people have to say for themselves. And frankly, a lot of that is incredibly boring, and you'll want to skim it.
Yeah, or read that.
It's horrendous, but
we got to know what they're saying to people.
That's right.
We want to effectively refute it.
I guess the Tower of Babel is taking a linguistic stance, a linguistics approach to looking at creationism.
Exactly, because there's a lot of emotional stuff tied up in the idea of evolution. Ew, I come from monkeys. And language. I mean, language evolves too, and we know that for a lot of the same reasons that we know that animals evolve. And there's not the same kind of emotional attachment to that. Plus, as the title of the book mentions, there's a story in the Bible that says that all languages were created by God at the same time. So it's a good way to make a parallel argument.
Interesting.
Well, good. There's a group from Germany that was protesting the German tax, the church tax that they have. It's clearly against their German constitution, but
the German constitution has separation of church and state.
Yeah, they do, and like here, they have a lot of trouble sort of following through on that and dealing with that. The group is called the Alliance Against Conformism, which of course has a German name that I can't possibly pronounce. But they have a test case that they're running through the courts where they have a poor out of work.
English is a cousin to German? I won't stand for that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, French. Rednecks these days are complaining about French.
Yeah, they're running a test case where they have a poor guy who's been out of work and still has to have his unemployment benefits taxed by the church to support the churches. So and she's the woman who was speaking was trying to get Americans to write the German chancellor because apparently American opinion holds a lot of sway there to actually enforce this law, this constitutional law.
Does anybody know recent German history well enough to know the origins of the German Constitution? And I'm wondering whether any of that got influenced by the Allies at the end of World War II. Did they make a new constitution? I'm just curious. It might have been us that stuck that in there.
I'm not sure, but my sense is that
I think most countries that have a constitution at least have somewhat of an influence from the American one.
Okay, that's interesting.
Another little item I'd like to bring up is a guy by the name of Eddie Tabash spoke about getting elected to public office, and not only how important that is, but some of the logistic reasons for doing that. And he advocated that atheists should associate in people's mind the fact that we are willing to use science and reason to form our opinions and do public policy, and that should be our trademark. And he was advocating that we really sort of wave our flag as far as that goes.
I'm all in favor of that too.
And of course, if you look at the last presidential election, it's pretty hard to get anybody elected who wasn't like a big believer. So we have a little bit of an uphill battle as far as getting people elected.
Well, it's worse now, I think.
Right. No, it is. Because they won.
I had a woman in line behind me at the polls, and she was talking to this other lady and said that she would never vote for anybody who wouldn't go to church. But she was talking about the former Vice President Gore.
Yeah.
I'm like, I guess he didn't go to the right church, so she'd never vote for anybody that didn't go to church. And he was a very religious man.
Yeah, right,
Of all
sure.
church.
He's a Baptist.
I know.
I mean,
He's not the right
I've
one.
always thought it's funny that that Gore was a Baptist and Bush was what, a Methodist?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like completely opposite of the stereotype. of
Right.
those.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. One more little item that I think might be a good transition off to the other conference is they gave an award to Newdow for his work on the Pledge Challenge. Of course, Newdow was at the other convention, so he couldn't accept the award in person. But it was interesting that they scolded him for his stance on treating atheism as a religion.
Right. When he gave his talk at the March on Washington, he brought up that point, basically arguing that the Bill of Rights protects freedom of religion and that it's difficult to protect atheist rights unless we say that applies to us, and that we should therefore not shy away from accepting the view that atheism is a religion. Which, I still haven't really formed an opinion on. But
well, one of the problems with it is
tactical value.
If we say it's a religion, then we are sort of put ourselves on the same playing field, and then it becomes kind of a majority rule. Which religion's better, which religion should get the most airplay or whatever, and we won't win there. That's for sure.
Right. In a way, that's what they want. I mean,
They want us to say that we're a religion.
Right, because in the realm of nonsense religions, Christianity has a track record of winning.
Right.
I mean, the reason that atheism ought to win over Christianity is because it's not a nonsense religion. It's, simply valuing reality.
Yeah. So just to
Sure. Well, I mean, there's the whole question of then what do you do about the Constitution, right? I mean, if we say it is unconstitutional for the government to support any particular religious views, right? And atheism is nothing but the lack of belief in a God, right? Then that would make the case, it seems to me, it would make the case of the fundamentalists stronger when they say, well, we're not teaching religion in schools, therefore we're teaching atheism, right?
Right.
Atheism needs to not be a religion, so we're not even in that argument, right?
Yeah.
So that's tricky.
Yep.
I don't think lack of teaching a belief can be equated to lack of actual belief. I mean,
but it makes it muddier, right?
Yeah,
it makes it muddier if atheism is another religion.
Yep.
No, I agree. I know what atheist education would look like if we had it in schools, and we don't have that. But once atheism is considered a religion, then to a lot of people it's going to look like not teaching any of the other ones means by default it's atheism.
Yep.
Well, like George Bush, I think he was quoting Jesus when he said, you're either with us or against us, or at least paraphrasing him.
Well, they're going to think
That's
that whether we call
think.
ourselves a religion or not. So
True,
really
but
matter.
why make it easy for them, like you said?
Right. Well, just to wrap up here, that was not all the speakers and such. I would like to refer people to their website, and it's www.atheists.org with an S on the atheists, and there's information about the convention there, and they have a very good website with a lot of good material, and I recommend taking a look at it.
Cool. Now, before we go into the Atheist Alliance Convention, I want to read some of our general announcements. Russell, could you do me a favor?
Yes.
Take a quick look over at www.infidels.org/wire. That's the Internet Infidels Newswire, an excellent page.
It has not been updated since the 20th.
And did you check today? Russell's saying it has not been updated since the 20th. That is my understanding too, but I'm about to read an announcement about it, and I don't want my announcement to be out of date.
May 20th.
Okay. They're seeking a new...
That link is still up there.
The Internet Infidels are seeking a new maintainer for their Newswire page. This volunteer job takes 1 to 2 hours a day. If you're interested and meet the following requirements, send an email to wire@infidels.org. I'd recommend going to the webpage. They have a link that says we're looking for a new maintainer. Read what they want. And I urge somebody out there to take up that job.
Yes, it would help us enormously because
that's where we get most of our news.
A lot of that.
But really, I mean, as a service for the atheist community, for a one-stop shop for all the wacky antics of Christianity and important political issues and things that you're going to want to know. That has been an amazing page, and the guy who was maintaining it before, whose name I didn't write down, has done a spectacular job, and we don't want that to fall apart. Any instances of slurs, defamation, or discrimination against atheists or other non-believers in the U.S. media can be reported to the National Atheist Ombuds by emailing ombuds@atheism.org. Please remember to include as many details as possible and a news source where applicable. Incidents will be reported to participating national and local non-theist organizations who have agreed to distribute press releases regarding the reported subject matter. And that service has been used and has successfully organized response to just crazy, rude things that theists have said about atheists on several occasions over the last couple of years. So keep that in mind and keep your ears open. Now you can collect past episodes of The Non-Prophets and an audio version of our sister show, The Atheist Experience, which airs on public access television only in Austin, Texas, in convenient CD format. Each CD includes a full month's worth of audio from both shows in both QuickTime and MP3 format, plus extra surprises. The CDs are $5 each. Contact atheist@mac.com for info. That's all I've got for announcements. Michele.
Yes, Jeff.
Tell us about the Atheist Alliance Convention.
Well, the Atheist Alliance Convention was held in Tampa this year, which was nice. And the business part of it began on Thursday and Friday, and then the regular convention was on Saturday and partially Sunday. But I guess the main attraction were the headliners for this. Mm-hmm. I mean, you couldn't have done better than this. They had Richard Dawkins.
Well,
right.
They had Michael Newdow.
Yeah.
They had
whose song we played at the beginning of the show.
They had.
Did you tell them what that song was, by the way?
That song was, in case anybody missed the beginning of the show, we played "I'll Always Love My God" by Michael Newdow. He's the lawyer who brought and won the case against the compulsory recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance. The song is actually a compilation of messages he got on his answering machine after he won that case, and he arranged them into a song with extra lyrics. And it's hilarious.
It had us rolling in the aisles when he started playing it.
Now, how did he play that live? Did you just does he play a tape of the little bit, and then there's gaps between them, and he has to fit his singing in between the playback?
Right.
And that worked out.
It did.
Okay, good.
It did. They actually the Atheists of Florida are lucky to have a man in their group who has his own business, and we had all state-of-the-art projection equipment, audio equipment, cameras. It was really very well done. And so we also had Michael Shermer and James Randi.
Wow.
So it was.
And Randy must have been easy because he's in Florida. He's based in Florida.
Yeah, right. They call it. It's the James Randi Educational Foundation, which they all call JREF.
Right.
So they work at JREF.
That's it. JREF.org. No, I think it's actually Randy.org.
I think so.
Randy's with an I.
Yeah, RANDI.
Right. Wow, that's some big names in atheism.
It was, and we also had Pastor Deacon Fred.
Pastor Deacon Fred of Landover Baptist Church, who was an amazing laugh riot at the March on Washington. Particularly since at the March on Washington we had fundamentalist Christian hecklers, and he would stop in the middle of his comedy routine and say to them, well, "You're not true Christians."
He's very good at ad-libbing. They had him actually moderate a discussion among these guys.
Yeah?
Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
It was pretty good.
I can imagine.
But the first night, we were lucky enough, they had a wine reception for Richard Dawkins, so he was very approachable. He was jet-lagged and beat.
And liquored up.
And now he wasn't even, I don't think he was too tired to get liquored up. But he was very gracious and was, signing people's books and chatting until he excused himself and went and laid down. But one of the funnest things in the whole convention was on Friday, which was Good Friday. And for those of you that may not be aware, there's a apparition in Clearwater, Florida. It's Our Lady of Clearwater.
My gosh, that's it?
That's it.
She's got a postcard here.
And also, if you...
See message on... Where is she?
It's a Madonna-esque image.
Yeah, so if you actually want to see a picture of it, it's on our website.
Oh, it's that whole... It's that whole...
It's the outline of Mary
with
her hand.
There's like this shimmery...
Rainbow water.
Yeah.
Thin film diffraction sort of thing. On a bunch of windows going up a 3-story building.
Only extremely desperate people would interpret this as a image of a person, much less a particular person, much less a particular supernatural person.
To brainwashing
and
what it is.
Apparently she's been speaking to some woman. If you read on the back, it says...
More brainwashing.
Let's see, where is it?
So you all took a little field trip
to
see
this,
right?
We did, and we also managed to have the Associated Press come, too. But it's the funniest thing. You're driving through a regular suburban area.
Right.
You go past a car wash, and there's this small office building that used to be a bank.
Yeah.
And apparently she picked a bank because we've made God our money. And they bought some group in Ohio.
No. We've made money our God, you mean.
Right.
God our money. Whatever. Same difference. But it was...
If we're going to have a God, it would be best if it was, something with some kind of physical, tangible nature.
Right. Yes, we made money our God. And if you look, I think there's a website, too. It's shepherds-of-christ.org. And they bought the building. And
so
I guess...
the marketing potential, presumably, right?
Exactly. And in 1996, groundskeepers discovered this. And what they don't tell you is that there used to be a palm tree in front of the apparition. And if you go around the building...
Not that palm tree.
No, that's a smaller one.
Okay.
If you go around the building, anywhere water hits the tinting on the windows on a regular basis, like where the sprinklers hit, you also have the rainbow effect. If you go around to the left, you can find Buddha.
So this
well, if you're desperate enough to see a Buddha.
By water rushing down, washing off the palm tree and hitting the building. And then they've since removed the palm tree, so of course it's magical.
I'm checking this up.
Did Randy have anything to say about this?
Yeah, he said he was going to take a sample of the water and see if there were any... But he just thought it was obviously an effect of the water running down the side of the building.
Yeah.
And it could be the car wash faces this side, and they thought there might be some detergent and stuff coming over from the car wash that might have an effect.
I'm checking the postcard here for a copyright, because there was this hilarious message posted on Alt Atheism, the news group on the internet, a few days ago from some lunatic who considers himself a prophet, and is like... Here's this message received from the Lord on so-and-so date, and there's all this rambling nonsense, right? And at the bottom, there's this copyright notice, and it's copyrighted in the name of this guy who's the prophet. And I'm thinking, you got to admire the balls of somebody who claims to be delivering the message of the Lord, yet copyrights the text of that message to himself. But there's no copyright on this, so we can freely distribute these messages from Mary. If we wanted to.
Yeah, let me just... they handed out this little piece of information. Apparently this happened in December 1996, and news spread so quickly that people started descending on the office building. And it was costing the city $40,000 a day for police support and porta potties to keep the area safe. And there's this huge, very graphic crucifix that's carved out of wood. And apparently, it's one devoted window watcher, Felix Avalos, camped in the building's parking lot for 3 years. Acting on the advice of God, he carved a 21-foot crucifix to pair with the building. And there it says, there's a sign, too.
I have some different advice for him.
Get a life. There's on the car wash, the car wash is Selena or something's car wash, quick loop. Virgin Mary T-shirts, $9.99. Transmission service. But when you
car wash is taking it in stride,
which is actually when you first go in, It's got the office building, it's got the parking lot around, and there's a little chain link fence and a place where they have all these plastic patio chairs.
Uh-huh.
And when you go in, the only thing you get free is that postcard.
Right.
But there's a whole lot of things that are available for purchase. There's a few outside, and there's a gigantic gift shop inside where you can buy everything from rainbow virgin outline keychains to tapestries. It's amazing. And they have also inside they have the daily prayer room, which they have.
What is this message about making money our God again? Irony.
Kind of ironic.
My irony meter is registering. Let's say more than just a tremor at this point.
But so we were there, and but it was Good Friday, so there were a lot of people seriously coming to visit the shrine. Mm-hmm. Mostly Hispanic people, taking pictures of their children in front of it. There's must be hundreds of candles.
Were they allowed to do that for free?
Yes.
Okay.
You can get your picture taken. But usually they bring flowers. They bring flowers and candles, which, granted, aren't really worth much monetarily, but I'm sure they make a donation to help support it.
Right.
But, so, on and off, people were coming and visiting, leaving flowers, taking pictures, leaving candles. And while we were there is when Randy, Shermer, and Newdow all arrived together. And then Dawkins had come along too, so we had Dawkins, Newdow, Randy, and Shermer in front of this shrine. So people were calling in the Holy Trinity. We had three of them. We had Randy, Shermer, and Dawkins in front of it, and they were making jokes about them being the Holy Trinity. And
the wise man coming.
The wise man. And Shermer and I actually ducked around the side and were looking for the Buddha, but we couldn't really see it very well. But they all seemed to be having a great time, and the Associated Press showed up and started to interview them about what they think it really is. And I was sitting next to Michael Newdow when they were interviewing him, and he's very nice. He's a very smart guy. He's a doctor of emergency medicine. He's also a lawyer. Whenever anyone asks him about his daughter, the only thing he says is she's a great kid, and that's all I say about my daughter. Mm-hmm. He won't talk about her, which I think is nice. And he apparently right now is interested in going after end-of-life issues, the right to die, assisted suicide. Unfortunately, he said he doesn't have any standing right now because he doesn't have Alzheimer's, but by the time he gets Alzheimer's, he won't be able to go to trial, so it's sort of a catch-22. Mm-hmm. But it was fun, and we actually restrained ourselves, and nobody was being too goofy and laughing too hard, so it was nice. And Associated Press did run a story on it, and it was good coverage. And anyway, after that little jaunt, we went back, and let's see, I think the first speaker, Dawkins was supposed to speak on his new book, which is called The Devil's Chaplain, which is not yet available in the United States, but a lot of people were ordering it from Amazon.com in UK. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, he said you shouldn't, he was a little chastised the organizers for having him speak in what was to him about 2 o'clock in the morning. Uh-huh. They should have had him speak in the morning. And so instead of, he was supposed to do a lecture on science and religion. Right. But instead he just read excerpts from his new book, which was fine. Yeah. Little bits and pieces. And then Pastor Deacon Fred, he's such a riot. He is so much fun. It's even better when people heckle him. He's just so entertaining.
Did anybody not get the joke and think he was
I don't think so. We had about, I think there was between 200 and 300 people there.
Oh yeah, that's something I should have asked about the American Atheist Convention. What was the turnout?
It was about 200. Yeah. So I think that yours was more well attended, better attended. Right?
Well, actually,
how's the mood at these conventions? That's something that interests me. Oh, I mean, was it somber, furtive, silly? What was the general mood?
Well, at our convention, I've been to 2 of them now, and it's always been just a real, it's almost like people are relieved to be around other atheists for a change. And some of them...
Not everybody can have as cool a group as the Atheist Community of Austin in their area.
Well, we are very lucky here.
And but the thing, like Margaret Downey, who is head of the Freethinkers of Greater Philadelphia, she says she goes home, she has a case against the city where she lives to get the Ten Commandments taken off of the courthouse.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes home and she gets, hate phone calls, and the neighbors, stick signs on their yards and all this. And then she comes here and she can regroup and she refreshes herself and she can go back and fight again. Because it really does wear her down to not be around atheists.
That's nice.
So,
Jeff Jones is in the chat room. He wants to let you know that they were in, Jill and he were in Angie's restaurant in Austin yesterday. And they have a huge framed print of that Florida Mary image that you were visiting.
Hey, Jeff. How you doing, man? Out there to you in the chat room. How many people we got in the chat room now?
We now have 4 other people.
Oh, cool. So what about at the American Atheist Convention?
The mood?
Yeah.
I would say that most of the people there were of the more sort of hard-boiled atheist types. I don't think we had a lot of people that were out seeking community.
Yeah.
I would say
more
that
serious.
I'd say yes. It had a more serious and more business tone. There's a lot of frustration with the current administration and all the antics going on, and. There was sort of a sense of feeling like we're circling the wagons sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah, it's hard not to be frustrated.
Yeah.
Or terrified. Okay, so is there more?
There's more. Yeah, of course there's more.
Okay.
We also, we talked about Herb Silverman before. He's the head of the Humanists of the Low Country from South Carolina. And actually our own David Clark is now a police officer at the college where Dr. Silverman teaches. So David Clark's become Herb's right-hand man like he was down here.
Cool.
Very active, very devoted to atheism, or freedom of religion, I should say. Anyway, Shermer spoke. He was talking about his new book, or his latest book, is called Why. He wanted to make it Why We Believe, and the publishers made him change it to How We Believe.
Right.
And which he was rather annoyed at. And he also said that if people ask him if he believes in God, he says no, but he doesn't like to identify himself as an atheist because of all the baggage that comes with.
Right.
So I guess it's
I know that's his thing, and I just disagree because it doesn't. We need to have. He's against the use of the word atheist because of negative connotations, right?
Right.
I think that it is unrealistic, though, to think that we could come up with any other term and operate under that term and not acquire the negative connotations. The negative connotations are coming from the believers finding out that folks that don't agree with them are identified by that term, right, and applying the negative connotations. That's inevitable. So why throw it away? I just don't understand. We already have a word that everybody recognizes.
Yeah, everybody who is going to be homophobic knows what gay means now, and it doesn't make them, shed their stupid negative connotations about that.
Right.
Right, and they use the word gay as an insult now.
Right.
Yeah. So
kids use the word gay.
I just don't think we should let the people who are against us control the terminology by them.
Connotations.
Yeah, the connotation of the terminology. Or they can make it connote whatever the hell they want, but
they can connote their
why should that make us stop using the term? And there was another. There's another story that dovetailed. Why don't you just go straight into that one?
This was...
Because this is the most embarrassing thing about the entire convention, from my opinion. Go ahead.
Minga Futrell and her husband, Paul Geisler, I think his name is. They are in education in California. They're teachers. I think they're in Sacramento. And they decided that we needed a word that we could use, like homosexuals have gay. That was a kinder, gentler word, a nice word that would be able to represent all humanists, free thinkers, atheists, agnostics, whatever. And the word they came up with was bright. And bright as a noun, which you wouldn't say I am bright. You would say I am a bright.
Right.
And
embarrassing.
The word actually Dawkins loved it. Dawkins really seemed to when he introduced Randy later, he introduced Randy as a bright. Yeah. So
have you encountered anybody since the convention actually using that term?
No.
I have.
Who?
I was on the Alt Atheism news group, debating with some of my stupid atheist colleagues about Michael Moore. Michael Moore?
Yeah.
Yeah, filmmaker. And I got a letter from a woman who reads the news group and was thanking me for defending Michael Moore, and she identified herself as a bright.
Oh, sir, do you remember what her name was?
I forget.
So, it's not the stupid people who are using the word.
No, but it's just lame. It's just kind of lame.
Well, the main problem I had with it was that atheists already have people think that we're snotty. We think we're smarter than they are and better than they are.
And
so if we're bright, does that make they're not bright? It just doesn't really come off that well.
Yeah, but I don't know. I appreciate the concept. It's just
me too.
I don't think that we should shy away from the word atheist because it already works. And B, I don't know where the word gay came from. Was that coined by some kind of intentional marketing campaign?
No, I don't think it was intentional.
But that's what this seems like, though, right? That seems like, and I don't think you can.
Maybe not quite as calculated as.
I think maybe the problem is that I don't really care to try to wrap up a complicated philosophy in one word. If people, atheist is perfectly good for me, and I have to explain myself enough as it is because people have enough misunderstandings about what atheism means. Now, a totally new word is just going to confuse things even more.
Yeah. Well, I think the fundamental problem here is atheism and the related groups are all about thinking for yourself and getting a consensus and getting
a common. As you like in your news group, not all atheists are that bright.
Well, that's true. Like in my news group and other places. But that's interesting. If it catches on, sure, I'll be a bright. What the hell? But I don't think you can do it like that.
Well, they tried to get.
Whip up a new term out of whole cloth and have people, particularly atheists, who are so independent-minded, just latch onto it like that. I don't think it can be done that way.
Yeah, I think they realized they were going to have a problem when they first started. The presentation they gave was the mysterious word to unify us all.
Uh-huh.
And they made a big build-up. This is the word. You'll be tempted to think of other words. No, this is the word. And we're like, what?
Oh boy.
So, yeah. But I appreciate the idea.
Effort, right? I mean, it's not, but that's not.
How about James Randi? What did he have to say
about bright?
Oh no,
about anything?
Yeah.
I
think we've beaten that one pretty good.
Well, let's do Shermer first.
Okay.
Shermer spoke about why are we moral, the origins of morality, and a science of provisional ethics.
Mm-hmm.
And basically he said to ask why are we moral is as silly as asking why are we hungry. It's just a natural condition from living in a society as we all do because we're social animals. he also, well, it says morality transcends culture as evolution transcends culture. It belongs to the species.
Right. Though obviously there are, different moral rules that are prevalent in different cultures. So there is more to it than that.
Right.
And it's not like, the French people are the ones that have the extra vertebrae or
But Daryl Lamb.
Well, I'm tempted to suggest that maybe they do. They have a significant amount of backbone standing up to the U.S. But we'll talk about the war later.
Daryl Lambert.
Daryl Lambert,
the Eagle Scout.
Right.
He was there. We gave him a Mark Twain Award.
Man, these guys had everybody. They had all the big names.
We did, and he said now that he's been kicked out of Eagle Scouts, he's more involved in Boy Scouts than ever. He goes on more campouts than he used to.
All right. Hooray for our youth, huh?
He said that the guy...
So what does he do? I mean, does he go to the events as a guest?
Yeah, he just
goes. Does he wear his paraphernalia? Do they give him a hard time?
No, and what he says is that the person who raised the fuss was somebody that had a personal vendetta against him for something else.
Huh.
Oh, there's a news story that I forgot to print this week.
Yeah.
But Philadelphia, the Boy Scout organization in Philadelphia, has decided to go against the larger body of Boy Scouts and say that they openly accept gay people.
I'm sure Margaret Downey has something to do with that, because that's where she got her start, fighting the Boy Scouts, and she's been very active in speaking out against Boy Scouts, and she's based in Philadelphia.
Beginning.
But he said he knows of a lot of other scouts.
People in the chat room are discussing what the opposite of bright would be, because somebody said, does that mean that religious people are dims? And then somebody else says, well, maybe they'd be A-brights.
Those are cute. Yeah.
But anyway, so Daryl said that essentially he doesn't foresee any problems for future Eagle Scouts in Washington, that this guy that made the big stink has basically been told to lay low and knock it off. And it really, I think the Boy Scouts are going to have to change. I think it's rising up enough against them that...
But they haven't changed their rules yet.
No, they haven't.
When they change their rules, that's the time for our side.
They are.
They're perfectly welcome to have their own whatever policies they want. They just can't claim to be accepting of all youth and therefore entitled to government subsidy and
but they want that government
privileges,
money. They want that government money, so I'm sure
can't have it both ways.
Right.
Yeah, I think they're having a convention, and I forget where. And there's going to be a lot of protests there. Scouting for All will be there, which is a group formed in California, and he seemed very hopeful that eventually, just to survive, the Boy Scouts are going to have to mend their ways.
Yeah.
Also, there was a young lady whose name I can't remember, who was from Colorado. I think she was 18, and she'd done a lot to, I think she was the state church separation issue. I think it was either the pledge or some state church separation issue in Colorado that she had been active in publicizing and getting people to protest, and she won a Mark Twain Scholarship and Award, too. Margaret Downey was there, who I talked about. Margaret is the one that managed to get Dawkins to come to the meeting. She lives in Philadelphia, or near Philadelphia, and their case to have, you probably saw it on TV, where while the judge ruled that the Ten Commandments plaque should be taken out of the courthouse, but it's built into the wall.
Right.
So while it was under appeal, they ordered it covered.
Right.
The day that the guys went there to cover it, there was this big protest and people throwing themselves on the ground and praying in front of it. And it was just a big...
What about not worshiping false idols?
Yeah, or what about the claim that it's not about religion?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Or
what about, simply understanding that throwing yourself on the ground isn't going to change anything?
What sort of proves the point? It's a religious icon because they're there praying and saying the rosary in front of it.
But these people are they're all there praying to their invisible friend that something's going to happen. A lightning bolt is going to come out of the sky and zap the guy that tries to cover it, right? Well, it didn't happen. Duh! Morons.
So then, of course, they covered it, and at one point somebody ripped the cover off it. It was like metal and bolted to the wall, and they pried that off. And of course, there's been a uproar against her because of this, and somebody got local merchants in the area around the courthouse to post the 10 Commandments in the store windows.
Uh-huh.
So now they got these little store windows with 10 Commandments in them.
Right.
And these are places where she has to shop personally.
Yeah, but
I know.
they have that freedom.
They do, but it just...
I should mention, Nanda and I were driving around this morning trying to find a place to have breakfast. Pulled into a Whataburger. That's how desperate we were for food. And
scary. They
had a big poster in the window, "One nation under God, indivisible."
Right.
We pulled out of the parking lot and looked for someplace else.
Right.
But they have that right? There's nothing illegal about them saying whatever the hell they want to say.
Right.
But I don't know. Do you think we maybe whip these guys into a frenzy by sticking up for our rights? Do you think maybe we make it worse in our own culture?
The rebound sometimes is worse than I think what was going on ahead before.
But we got to do it. If we don't do that, then we just lose by default.
There are a lot of battles to fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
it's not going to be pleasant, but it has to be done.
Well, Margaret, she goes by her maiden name when she does all her activism, so she doesn't use her married name, so theoretically, people don't bother her kids because she got into this because of the Boy Scouts,
right?
And her son being given a hard time in Boy Scouts, and she also has the Atheist Discrimination Network, which she collects instances of discrimination.
Is this the Ombuds?
No, she actually works with the UN. The UN was asked to ask some smaller committee to investigate religious discrimination or lack of religion.
That's cool.
To the UN, and she collects stories for that. She runs in high circles. She's obviously quite the socialite. Probably one of the better off members of any kind of atheist group I've known. So she has friends in big places. So if you ever have an instance of discrimination, you can document it. I think it's the Free Thinker Society of Greater Philadelphia, FSGP. You can contact her. It's Margaret Downey, and she collects all of those. After Margaret, Michael Newdow came out, and I fully expected him to just give us a talk about what he had done, his experiences with the pledge. But he came out with a guitar and a harmonica around his neck. And he's very good and very funny, and his songs the lyrics are quite clever. Yeah, we played the one at the start of the show, and we'll play that song in its entirety at the end. But the rest of the album is quite good. There's only one song on there I don't like. The rap one? Yeah, it's the rap one. Because it's too long, and he's too not. So is he trying to parlay his fame into like a record career or recording career, or what? I don't know. There's one song on there, Names That Run Together, which is about the invitation that he got to speak at Harvard.
I listened to that one.
And it's all making fun of himself for the fact that his name, Michael Newdow, is in among all these other famous dignitaries and scholars and so on. A song like that could be really self-serving, but it doesn't come. He makes so much fun of himself for being in that situation that it's charming, it's nice.
No,
I don't get the impression that he's trying to, take his notoriety and turn it into something more. I think it's just, he's got things to say musically, and he's doing it.
Okay.
No, I think he seems to enjoy it. He actually, like a lot of entertainers, he seems one-to-one to be very shy. And, but yeah, he never seemed, Shermer occasionally comes across as a bit pompous, but Newdow didn't seem like he was full of himself, or it just seemed like just a nice guy that just felt like he had to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And
cool.
But yeah, the one where he started talking about how he got the idea to bring the pledge case, and that was, he said he was buying a bunch of soap for some friends as a joke. He was going to go stay with them, and he was going to bring all these cases of soap because they never had the right soap when he got there. And he was paying, and he was looking at the money, and it had "On God We Trust," and that got him all riled up. He said he never really thought of it before. And then that sort of put the germ in his mind that, we need to do something about this. This isn't right.
Well, it's a classic case of give the religionists an inch and take a mile,
Right. They get away with something, and then suddenly that thing they got away with is evidence that they have the right to do that.
Right. Let's put it in the post offices next. And
constantly.
Right.
No, you can't complain to me about putting it in the post offices. It's already in the banks.
Well, now, it's going to be law starting September in Texas. People are required to do the Pledge of Allegiance and the Pledge of Allegiance to Texas every day, and a moment of silence in school.
Yeah, we'll see how that works out.
So, where's Michael when you need him?
Who's teaching when we need it?
Yeah, no kidding. There was also a woman named Nancy Powell who's from Oregon. The Boy Scouts were coming to her school, her child's school, during lunchtime and recruiting, which they're not supposed to be allowed to do. So if anybody out there, the Boy Scouts are coming to your school, you should write to the principal and complain, because they're not, as a discriminatory organization, they should not be allowed to come on to the school during school hours. If they want to rent a room, that's a different matter. But
as long as the school makes those rooms available to any organization that comes in to use them.
But these guys were actually coming in at lunchtime and recruiting, and her son was feeling very put upon because his mother told him that you can't join because they don't want people that don't believe in God. And
didn't we read that story a few weeks ago where the school was claiming not to support this Christian getaway mission type thing, and they were using their school buses and letting students out of school?
Oh, yeah.
Having the teachers escort them and saying, well, we don't, we're not supporting this. I think we talked about that on our last show.
They don't force them to go. Of course, but what kids, if you say, let's get on the bus, everybody on the bus.
Same thing occurred to me when you were talking about the town in Florida with the Virgin Mary window, right? That how much it was costing the city every day to provide police and porta potties. Well, wouldn't it save a lot of money if you just let the people congregate there, and then when they got out of hand, go in with the billy clubs and drive them away? That'd be one day. And it would solve the whole thing.
Religious persecution.
There you go.
Would it? Not if they were actually... If they were rowdy and violent and they actually posed a threat, then that's the time to react. When there's actually something going wrong. And, I don't see why it's the city's responsibility to provide the porta potties.
Yeah, I don't know.
Could be
too many Christians.
There could be a... yeah.
Don't think it would have been the neighbors making the stink. It would have been the people there that needed the potties that were making the stink.
Well, probably the traffic alone would have been an absolute nightmare.
I do make it a policy to say at least one extremely tasteless thing every show, and that was it. For everybody keeping track.
Right.
Okay, go ahead.
But if you...
Well, it is ironic the shit was piling up there, right?
The area around the bank is heavily under construction.
Uh-huh.
The roads are completely torn up. If it was that bad when it started, I can just imagine it was a police nightmare trying to get people in and out of that area. I wouldn't have wanted to have been there.
Well, so any other major things from the event that you want to talk about?
I haven't talked about Randy yet. I could do
Okay,
Randy.
yeah, please. And how are we doing on time, Russell?
We have half an hour left, not including the time to play music.
Okay, so let's do Randy and wrap it up, and then we'll do some news.
Well, let me just mention something that Bobby Kirkhart, the president of the Alliance, mentioned. Apparently, the Department of Energy and HUD are having meetings throughout the country to introduce community groups and church groups into getting some funds from the government. It's sort of like charitable choice, but...
Okay.
So if any atheist groups want to show up and go to the HUD website and try to find out when they're going to be in your area...
Yeah. Are we doing that?
Yeah, I guess I will. Unless somebody else wants to volunteer to do it.
We'll find somebody. Make them do it.
Okay. Well, anyway, James Randi was given the first ever Richard Dawkins Award for Atheist of the Year. Richard Dawkins gave his permission to use his name for the Atheist Alliance Award, which will now be given out once a year.
Next year they should give Richard Dawkins a James Randi Award just to make it better.
Well, somebody said, why did I give it to Newdow? And I said, well, Randy's older. Newdow's got some time left, hopefully.
He's been cheated by the awards before.
Newdow may be a one-hit wonder, right?
Yeah.
Randy's been in it for a long time.
That's true. His acceptance speech was sort of bittersweet. He talked about all the people that were with him, like Carl Sagan, who was his good friend, is gone, and Gould's gone, and Heinlein and Asimov.
Was he in contact with them?
Yes,
really?
Apparently he was very good friends with all of them, especially Carl Sagan.
Oh my gosh.
Towards the end of his speech, he actually got choked up when he was talking about how he was on the computer and saw a joke about physics and reached for the phone to call Carl to tell it to him, and then he remembered he wasn't there anymore. And the audience was sort of...
I know Dawkins was good friends with Douglas Adams, wrote a very moving tribute to him.
Yeah.
He does say he has an asteroid named after him.
Oh, wonderful.
But, let's see. Clark, also Arthur C. Clarke has an asteroid named after him, but his asteroid is smaller than his.
Pecking order, huh?
Dawkins is even smaller, so because size doesn't matter. He was pretty funny. He was real sweet. He showed some clips from when he had been on the Johnny Carson show, which I remember seeing as a child and having quite an impact on me about these faith healers. Apparently, they showed the clip on how it appeared on the Faith Healer show, how he went up to an old man and knew that something was wrong with his eyes and knew where he lived and had him put his hand over his eyes. And then they played it with the transmission that Randy's people had picked up on a recording device that this guy was getting into the earpiece in his ear.
From the Faith Healers. Right?
Which was his wife. And they said, never knew God was a woman and actually operate on a certain frequency.
That's a pretty famous case.
It was, and I remember that as a kid. Oh, what a crock. This is just, how can people believe this stuff? Yeah. Don't you ever watch Johnny Carson? But he also...
They do. That guy, that same faith healer whose name escapes me at the moment.
I don't know.
Russell, you must know. Who was the faith healer that...
The faith healer was... That guy with the foreign accent, right?
No.
This is older. This is like back in the 70s.
Anyway, the faith healer that got exposed for using this network of people to take down information on his shills and radio it to him. He is back in business.
Peter Popoff.
Peter Popoff. He's back in business again. Not only, you expose these guys to go away for a couple of years, they come right back again.
Yeah, he's
whack-a-mole game.
He's in the People United for Christ. That's who his latest group is.
Shameless.
Yeah.
He also
shameless rip-off artists. Just thieves, every last one of them.
And he talked about cold readers. And
Can I suggest a project, since I have you here on the show? And I've mentioned this several times over the couple of years we've been on the air, minus the several-month gap just recently. We're not talking about that. there are laws in many towns against fortune-telling.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know if Austin has such a law, and I want to go after these fortune-telling businesses that I see around Austin that are in violation of that law.
Yeah.
And I think we should spearhead this.
You know who might know something about that is Thomas Van Orden.
Yeah?
Because he's always investigating, he spends a lot of time in the law library.
Thomas Van Orden is the homeless lawyer who brought the suit against the...
He is the lawyer who happens to be homeless.
Who brought the lawsuit to take down the Ten Commandments monument near the Austin Capitol building.
Yeah, apparently that's a detail we're not supposed to report on. It's not relevant to the case, but that does make the case interesting for people that aren't lawyers.
Yeah.
So,
right. And he's not actually a practicing lawyer at the moment. I think he's on administrative suspension and paid his fees.
Yeah. But anyway, I really want to go after that because that I think is. That's the root of the problem, is that it's a way of ripping people off. And you got to start somewhere.
Well, and he basically talked about that, too, about how, like the cold readers, like what's in the guy's name on TV?
John Edwards.
Yeah. Just preying on people that are in emotional turmoil and are heartbroken.
Elderly.
Just, at a real... time in their lives when they're easily manipulated, and just going for them, just going right for the jugular. He also went after homeopathy, which he did the description of how you dilute something down so much that if you really did the calculations, you don't even have a molecule left in a dose of
the active ingredient.
Of the active ingredient, and. He's apparently upset with the patent office because he said they really don't do a good enough job in protecting patents.
Yeah.
He said that, I don't know if this is true or not, but he says that Dunkin' Donuts has actually patented the peanut butter sandwich. Peanut butter.
What?
Yes, he said there's a patent on a peanut butter sandwich.
There's a lot of crazy patents.
I'm guessing they didn't invent that.
Somebody has a patent on making toast. When you're in a swing as a kid, and somebody grabs both sides of the rope and twists it so when they let go, you kind of are wobbling.
Yeah.
Somebody has patented that motion. So...
somebody's not doing their job.
Yeah, he's a little upset with that.
As a kid, I had a little board game called the Inventors Game. And you went around the board and picking up these patents on all these bizarre things, like the parachute hat, and the hat with the automatic hat tipping mechanism in it. These are all accompanied by illustrations from the 1800s, right? All these crazy invent things, and then you try to make money on them. But
cool toys.
They're all old.
I didn't have cool toys like that growing up. I'm envious.
Well, and
I didn't actually have the parachute hat.
No.
Oh, I meant the game.
Oh,
yeah, I meant the game. Very good.
Well, I guess the final little revelation about Randy is that he's got a thing for Sophia Loren.
Oh, you have to say this on our worldwide broadcast audience.
Yes, with our 22 live listeners.
Well, but this show will be recorded and put on our webpage, and we'll probably have several hundred people if
So if Sophia's out there listening, go down to James Randy's house, and he has this what is it? Vision. No. He has this fantasy about, dark rainy night and having her car break down in front of his house and having her come.
How did this come up?
he wasn't just.
Did they have a panel discussion?
No.
Dawkins is going, yes, well, I've really got a thing for Nastasia Kinski. I saw that picture once of her with a snake, and it just drove me crazy.
No. It was actually wasn't just like in casual conversations. He announced it to everyone. So
okay.
I don't see it as a secret.
All right.
It wasn't just between he and I. But let's see. I guess that was it for him, and he seemed very tickled with getting the award, which is it's sort of clear plastic with a blue-green line through it. It's supposed to be like the river of knowledge going through it.
River Out of Eden.
River Out of Eden. They said that it's right
from one of his books.
So that's going to be
cool.
It's a nice-looking statue. But other than that, we had the infidel guy was there.
Right.
Also, we had
our own Reggie, Reginald Finley.
He was there.
Hi, Reggie.
Spearhead of the Atheist Network. Hi, Reggie, if you're listening to the show. Thanks a lot for having us back, man.
And he talked a lot about his why he felt the need to start some kind of atheist outreach, and questions that he'd asked himself. That like the question of heaven: how can you be in heaven if you're happy if people you love aren't going to be there too? And just questions like that just don't really make sense.
Can I sidetrack for just a second on that?
Sure.
I have a web page of my own which has some of my essays on it where I am blunt about my views about religion as per usual. But occasionally I get email from people that stumble across my website, and I recently got email from a guy who identified himself as a liberal Christian, and his whole case was that you can't think of God as some evil tyrant that sends you to eternal torture for not being a Christian, because it's just your choice, and hell is just it's like C.S. Lewis said, it's just like in eternity of being in the real world with real people acquiring things, and things break, and people you knew move away, and so on, and my response is like, how is that hell? In order to let God off the hook, you've turned hell into just an eternity of like daily life. And what was
daily life.
Yeah, what was really ironic to me is this Christian is coming at me with, I think I could really make your life happier if you'd come to Christ. And it's like, dude, I'm happy with the idea of an eternity of daily life. Sign me up.
That would be great.
You're the guy who's terrified by it. And you're calling me unhappy? You're unhappy. I thought that was hilarious. That was funny. How do we get started? You said hell.
Oh, just reasons that because he had been what's his name? Reggie had been raised Christian. He sang gospel, and he started taking college classes when he was in the Army. And one of the first books he read was The Case Against God.
Right.
And that sort of
woke him up, huh?
And he also worked in a Federal Bureau of Prisons for the Department of Justice, and he also noticed in the WACO ward, the majority of people there were heavy-duty Christians. So he became devoted to spreading the word, getting in touch with other atheists, and he's done a great job.
Oh yeah, extremely cool guy. I met him during the March on Washington thing, and deserves all kinds of credit for putting this effort together. Okay. So let's do a little bit of news. How much time we got left now? 15 minutes or so?
We've got a little over 10 minutes.
A little over 10?
Maybe 12.
You want to start one off?
Sure, I'd like to.
Go ahead.
Sort of a preamble to this story is that a few weeks ago, somebody on the message board I read said, "Hey, I just heard some lady in Texas killed all her kids. I know nothing about this story, but what do you want to bet that she's religious?"
Okay.
And here's the story. An East Texas woman accused of fatally beating her children with rocks spent Mother's Day sobbing and muttering about God in a jail cell. The Smith County Sheriff said the mother had used her cell phone to report that God ordered her to kill her sons. Meanwhile, the pastor of the church where Deanna LaJeune Laney sang in the choir told his congregation to demonstrate support and love for the family. So not only did she kill
the remaining family now is what we're talking about.
Yeah. Not only did she kill her kids, but she used a biblical method on them. She stoned them because God told her to.
They must have been misbehaving.
Astonishing. Well, here's kind of a flip side, positive story about murder and Christianity. Brighton, Colorado. This is from May 23rd. A judge threw out a convicted killer's death sentence on Friday, saying the jury improperly relied on the Bible to reach its decision. Judge John Virgil ordered a new sentencing hearing for Robert Harlan, who was convicted in 1995 of kidnapping, raping, and murdering Rhonda Maloney, 25. He also shot a passerby who tried to help, leaving her paralyzed. Quote, "If any case merits the death penalty, there cannot be serious debate about this being that case." Last name is Vigil. Vigil wrote, "The death penalty, however, must be imposed in a constitutional manner. Jury resort to biblical code has no place in a constitutional death penalty proceeding."
Good call.
Defense attorneys had argued the use of religious works during jury deliberations is improper because the works are not Colorado law.
Right.
Prosecutors said the use of biblical passages would not have influenced the verdict. Vigil said the sequestered jury read and discussed biblical passages on punishment in the deliberation room for the purpose of guiding and directing certain jurors to a particular verdict.
Oh.
Quote, "The jurors' reliance on these specific biblical passages cannot be considered benign."
The formation never allowed that.
Vigil referred to juror Lena Eaton Ochoa, who read and wrote down the citation to Romans 13:1, which says, quote, "Let every soul be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God." This and other passages the jurors considered do more than simply encourage jurors to follow the instructions of the court. The passages mandate that death be the penalty for murder, he said. So that got shot down. I'm sure in a retrial they will sentence that creep to whatever it is that they decide he deserves on a rational basis and not.
Of course, that's wasting taxpayers' money to have to redo the whole thing.
Well, but that's what we have to do. We have to spend taxpayers' money to put things right. That's what it's there for. Okay, what else? What do you got? And do you guys want to chime in on any of this stuff? I mean, we do have a few more minutes.
Don't worry, we will.
Just
okay.
A couple of days ago, the story of a big abortion case came to an end as the woman got her abortion. The fetus of a retarded rape victim was aborted despite the efforts of activists who took the fight to the Florida Supreme Court, an attorney said Friday. So basically she was raped, she was unfit to argue her own case in court, and this group called, I think it's the Family Research Council or something like that, jumped on the case and said that they were going to be a spokesman for the fetus. Doctors said a full-term pregnancy would have threatened the life of the 28-year-old mother, who is seizure-prone, said Landlock, who represents the disabled woman's mother. The abortion was performed Thursday, along with a tubal ligation to prevent future pregnancies, Block said. The judge said, a group that says it defends religious civil liberties had claimed Wednesday that it had persuaded the pregnant woman to have surgery to deliver her 24-week-old fetus instead. The judge said Thursday that the woman's mother had objected strongly. She did not want her daughter to be subjected to any more of an invasive procedure than was absolutely necessary to terminate the pregnancy and for a tubal ligation, Judge Arthur Rothenberg said in a statement. The Orlando-based Liberty Council also tried to stop the abortion in the courts, but Rothenberg denied its motion, and appeals to the 3rd District Court of Appeal and the Florida Supreme Court were rejected. Block called the legal efforts frivolous, nonsensical, and without any legal basis.
Man.
Score another one for the good guys.
Still got time? 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Well, let's bring ourselves up to speed on priestly pedophilia, shall we? Here's a story from Australia. I had this emailed to me by one of our listeners this morning, whose name, unfortunately, I forgot to write down and bring into the show. So, you know who you are. Thanks very much. Australian Prime Minister John Howard will try to restore dignity to Australia's vice-regal office today after the Governor-General finally declared he would resign. Dr. Peter Hollingsworth yesterday succumbed to the increasing controversy over his treatment of child sex abuse claims in the Anglican Church. So apparently this Hollingsworth was the Archbishop of the Anglican Church, and presided over a time period when there were numerous sex abuse cases that came to his attention, and he covered them up. And so now he's had to step down from that position in the Australian government. So, yay. The priestly author of Zero Tolerance faces abuse charges himself. This is from May 23rd. A Roman Catholic priest and expert on church law who co-wrote a document on dealing with sexually abusive priests has been charged with molesting a boy more than 30 years ago. A criminal complaint was filed May 12 against Reverend Gregory Ingalls, who until recently was a priest at St. Bartholomew Church in San Mateo. According to the complaint, Ingalls made incriminating comments in recent conversations with the victim that were tape-recorded by police. Ingalls could get 8 years in prison. He was one of 4 experts chosen to draft a legal interpretation of the zero-tolerance policy adopted last year by the nation's Catholic bishops toward child-molesting priests. Irony.
Mm-hmm.
He was charged under a controversial California law that allows certain sex crimes to be prosecuted beyond the usual statute of limitations. That law is now being challenged in court. Anyway, but there you go. Also, you got one?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Paul Wolfowitz, who is the Deputy Secretary of Defense and one of the big players in making us go to war in Iraq.
Oh, yeah.
Let's
talk about the war, shall we?
He's one of the members.
Remember, we had a war recently?
Yeah.
And it was completely freaking stupid and we shouldn't have been there?
Project for a New American Century, the conservative group who says that our new long-term strategy should be to take over the damn world.
Uh-huh.
And it has nothing to do with September 11th.
Mm-hmm. Right, because they wrote that policy down long before September 11th.
Right. More evidence for that showing up as Paul Wolfowitz was interviewed by Vanity Fair recently. The famously hawkish Mr. Wolfowitz has been a long-time proponent of military action against Iraq. Picking weapons of mass destruction was the one reason everyone could agree on, he says in the interview. The other factor he describes as huge was that an attack would allow the U.S. to pull its troops from Saudi Arabia, thereby resolving a major grievance held by Al-Qaeda. So
we attacked Iraq in order to placate Al-Qaeda.
Yeah, so we could save face while actually caving into some of their demands.
Good grief.
He said that using weapons of mass destruction as the main justification for going to war in Iraq was taken for bureaucratic reasons.
Yeah, it's fine to want to form a consensus, but it always helps if the thing you're forming the consensus over happens to be true. And everybody knows we've now been in Iraq for over a month, and no sign of any weapons of mass destruction.
Right.
And the funny we know they had stuff back in the first Iraq War because they used some of it. Right. There were traces discovered, but there's no evidence whatsoever that they had any weapons of mass destruction on any kind of scale that would be a threat to anybody. And I was listening to NPR the other day where they interviewed, and unfortunately I was in my car at the time, I don't have a lot of details, but they were interviewing a representative from an organization that just formed called something like Four Intelligence Agents for Sanity. These are retired people from the intelligence community who have come out and said, look, everybody in the intelligence community knew that Iraq did not have weapons of mass destruction, that are certainly none that we needed to worry about, nothing on that scale, and that basically this was all fabricated by the planning department. I forget the name of the specific department in the Bush administration. Basically fabricated all of this stuff as an excuse because they decided that that's what they wanted to discover, and so they hunted around for anything that they could spin into evidence that was true.
before the war, it became chic to make fun of the inspectors. I think I heard Rush Limbaugh call them bumbling Inspector Clouseaus or something like that. Everybody, pulled the typical Republican Party hack job on France and Germany,
right.
saying
and now that our
they're
inspectors,
incompetent idiots.
And now that our inspectors are in there and they can't find anything.
And they can't find anything in a country that we've taken over.
Right. And now it's like, just give them more time. They'll eventually find them. Good grief. That's just insane. Our country, everybody face it, our country did an evil, wrong, bad thing. And what we ought to be doing is facing up to that and apologizing for it.
I have a wonderful quote by French Premier Jacques Chirac. He said, "A war that lacks legitimacy does not acquire legitimacy just because it has been won."
That's right.
Yay.
That's right. And, frankly, it wouldn't win legitimacy even if we found the evidence of the weapons of mass destruction, because the fact is, there was no evidence that they had them in the first place. Guessing that they have weapons of mass destruction while claiming that we know that they do for sure is wrong and bad and evil when used as an excuse for an attack, even if we happen to guess right. Guesswork is not knowledge. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We will leave you once again with Dr. Michael Newdow and his song, the name of which I'm looking up.
I've always loved my God.
I've always loved my God.
Bye, everyone.
See you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
We think. Maybe 1 week.
1 week.
1 week.
23 new messages.